So now let's make the 40 stop. So these are the front calipers. Now I've got a rebuild kit for both sides. The car hasn't got that many K's on it, but still it'd be good to redo these. The rubbers, it's not too bad, but you know, if one of these break, you lose your whole brake. So we'll pull this apart, put new pads in it, put new seals through it, and make it stop really well. So the brake caliper's all off. You've got the pads still in there, with the pin holding them. To get that out, just pop these bits of spring steel out, pop it out, whack those rods out. Then you should just be able to dump the old pads out. So now I want to get the pistons out. So I can be a bit fiddly with these 4 piston calipers, because what I do, you put a bit of air in there. Yeah, right, so we got one out, and I didn't realise it was going to come out that easy. So what I should have done before is had it upside down like that, and had a piece of pipe or wood or something in there. I've just got a bolt for now. And that means it'll come out and hit that and not slam into the other side and then bounce off and almost hit you. So because now that piston's the weak one, well, the one that's not jammed in anymore, I'll just put a bit of a clamp there to hold it so it doesn't come out when you feed a bit more air into the rest of them. Righto, so the opposite side came out then. I'll pick the dust cover off. Close that piston back. So now I'm going to put a clamp on that side, holding the first one that let go. Put a clamp on the other side, doing the same thing. Put my piece of metal in there. Grab the air out again and that popped that side. Pick the dust cover off and put another clamp on there. Now I try and wiggle the other ones out because they're loose now. There's your 4 pistons out. Now we can split the caliper. So now I'm going to split the caliper. Now this isn't 100% necessary, but there's 2 little rubber O-rings in there, and if they go, all your brake fluid leaks out and you lose brake. So I've got the parts, so may as well fix it. So all that we have to do now is just replace all the seals. Now they're the little rubber O-rings that sit between the caliper. They just sit in there. Pop those out. And then inside you got one kind of O-ring on the inside. Kind of sits flush out a little bit. And pop those out. The other side's the same. Just get a pick in there and pick them out. So now we'll give this a clean up. A little bit of fine sandpaper on the inside. I've got a wire wheel like that, and I'll just clean the inside like that up. Clean all this up, and then we'll put the new O-rings in. So now the calipers are looking real good. We're going to put a bit of clear coat on them to protect them. So now the calipers are looking all nice and new. We've got all our new dust seals, all our new seals to the inside, all the new split rings, bit of rubber grease. We can start putting these back together. So putting the calipers back together is easier than cleaning them up and easier than pulling them apart. So you just want a bit of rubber grease. And I just like to put that around the seals, just keeps the rubber all nice, lets the piston slide in easy. And then there's a little groove inside there where you pulled the old seal out of. You just put one end in, and then the rest of the seal clips in like that. A little bit of grease around the inside. There's your first seal in. Grease the big seal up, chuck that side in, bit of grease on the inside. Now if we're not getting new pistons, a little bit of fine sandpaper, just give them a clean up. So now we've got the pistons all nice and clean, a bit more rubber grease around them, and then we can just push them in. Now there's one small piston and one big piston on these 40 calipers. So one small in one side, the big in the other, and the same for the other side of the caliper, because they're a 4-piston caliper. So now we're going to put the dust boots on. Now I don't put any rubber grease on these ones, because with this little split ring that has to go over, it doesn't really have a groove that it actually sits in, it just clamps on. And if you put a bit of rubber grease, I've found it just keeps slipping off. So it's easier just to squeeze it over like that on the top lip of the piston, push the piston down into the caliper a little bit further, have the dust seal sit on the top kind of divot in the caliper, got a seat for it, and then with these split rings you can see they're kind of overlapping. You just pull them out and sit the ends on each other so it holds it open. Then you can go back to your dust seal and just put it over, make sure they're seated, push them down the whole way, and it's easy as that to put it on. So now we've got to put the little O-rings in. Now they go in the centre of the caliper when it shuts together. They're pretty hard to find, these little O-rings, but there's a part number for terrain tamer if you need them. A little bit of rubber grease on these could never hurt. A little bit of that in them. Set them in the caliper. Grab a bolt just to hold it together for now, and then we'll get a bit of Loctite and a little bit of anti-seize. The anti-seize we can put on the shaft of the bolt, and then a bit of Loctite on the threads just to hold them in there. So now we'll pull the other ones out that we just put in there to centre it all, and do the same to those. So now that we've got the bolts in and hand tightened, we can just torque them up to about that tight. So we can now put our new brake pads in. Now it doesn't really matter if you do it on the car or not. I just find it a little bit easy to do it off the car. But a little bit of anti-seize on these pins, a little bit of anti-seize on the back of the pads, just stops them kind of rusting and getting binded up onto the pistons. Then we can just slot our pads in with the holes facing up. And now we can get our pins and put them through the hole, slide them through the holes on the pads, and then slide it out the other end, and do the same for this side. So now with them in, we can get our little retaining sort of piece of wire here. We can slot that in there, slot that on the other side, make sure there's a bit coming out the end, make sure they're in there, and then we can go put it on the car. So now we'll chuck it on the car. Now spread the pads out, goes in easy. Got that little bracket on the back that's got to go in. Slide that through, put one bolt in just to keep it there, and then we'll put a little bit more Loctite on the bolts and stick the bottom one in, and then we'll pull the top one out and put a bit of Loctite on that. So your bolts that hold the calipers on have to get tightened to around about 130 Newton meters. So it's a decent amount. So the final thing to do is put our brake lines on. Now, put the top one on, and you can chuck the bottom one on. So now the flexi line. You've got to screw and tighten in the top bit first. Once that's in, you can poke the bottom one through there, Set your bottom hard line in, then chuck your little clip in that holds it all in. So that's the brakes all rebuilt on the 40. New pads, new rotors, new rebuilt calipers. We're going to be stopping pretty good now.